Shalom Aleichem. We're learning the Sicha of Tazria 1. And it's quite fascinating, the evolution of the Sicha. What do I mean? When you go to the Sicha, at the end, it says, it was said, Apen Shal Pesach Tavshin Chafei, which is almost fully accurate, because the Sicha actually was started to said on the second night of Pesach. In those days, the Rebbe was bringing on the second night of Pesach. And it's interesting, the context of the Sicha was very different than the way it turned into the final essay. In the final essay, it's fundamentally, in the Sicha we learned, it's Bayem Hashmini Yibel Besar Lasei Bayem V'lei B'layla, a whole Shaila Chakira in Milah, when they circumcised themselves by Pesach Mitzrayim. In the original, and not the original, I'm saying when the Rebbe said the Sicha, so basically the Rebbe was explaining the Hagadah. And the Rebbe talks about the Ma'aseh of Rabbi Eliezer, the five Talmid Chacham who sat together Kol Halayla. Ad sheba'u Talmidim v'amru lahem Rabbi Seinu higi hazman kriya shema shel Shachris. Says the Rebbe, but l'chora that's against Harei Meshubach, because you're saying Kol HaMarbe, and over here you're limiting it. You're saying you can't do it anymore. Taka, the din is that when Kriya Shema shel Shachris comes, you have to go read Kriya Shema. But ein ze shayach l'Hagadah shel Pesach. Why? Because it's the story of Tzipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the chiyuv to stop Yitzias Mitzrayim for Kriya Shema is Shayach in Hilchas Kriya Shema. So why is it belonging in Hagadah Shel Pesach? It seems to be, obviously they did the right thing, but why are we mentioning in Hagadah Shel Pesach? And how could it be that the Talmidim had to tell them Yigiyaz my Kriya Shema Shel Shachris? Would they forget such a thing? And the Rebbe says, just going to mention the words of the Rebbe the Shver, the Fidik Rebbe, that by the Rabbeim, by the Rabbi Seinu, they had the light of Yichudei Ilah, which is the Indian of Kriya Shema Shel Shachris, and they were able to be poiled that by the Talmidim as well. And that's why the Talmidim were able to come say that we're feeling Yichudei Ilah now. But the Rebbe says that's against the simple pshat. Simple pshat is the Talmidim came and told them something they didn't know. And according to this pshat, the Rabbeim knew it and they were the one that taught it to the Talmidim. It says the Rebbe like this. When they were talking Yitzias Mitzrayim Kol Laila, they had the Giluyim of the night Yitzias Mitzrayim. What's the Chiddush of the night Yitzias Mitzrayim? And here's where you'll start seeing familiar words from the Sicha. Because at Yitzias Mitzrayim, they had Laila Kayoim Yair. The night shined by day. There was no alamas vestadim, and therefore Niglalei Malchmacham Lachum Kadosh Baruch Hu even by night, and the way that they were in Memtes Shadei Tuma. And the Yitziyah Memtes Shadei Tuma was only the next day by midday, but by night they were stuck in that Memtes Shadei Tuma, and even then Niglalei Malchmacham Lachum Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is a beautiful insight, because they shined an incredible light, Laila Kayim Yar. And this, and the Rebbe says, and this explains what the Medrash says, that when Moshe made the Pesach, Hashem decreed on the Dal Duchas Ha'ilam to come, and they kind of all cleaved unto the Pesach, as we learned in the Sicha, and the smell went for a distance of 40 days walk, and all the Yid came to Moshe, and they said, please let us eat the Korban Pesach, and Hashem said, if you don't have a Bris Milah, you will not be able to eat, so it's Chukas HaPesach. Wherever two bloods, Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. And that's where the Sicha starts really kind of building up. So it's interesting how it started originally and then how it developed into an essay. Just looking now, when was this essay, the Sicha published? Tafshin Lamed Vav. So this was 11 years after the Sicha was said, and then it turned into an essay. So when the Yidden came to Moshe and they asked Pesach, it was already night, because Manchilas Pesach is by night, and Mitzvahs Milah is by night, so by day. How could they do it by night? Al Pi Nigla, you could say that the din of Milah Shalei B'Zmana only came later, by Yom Shmini B'Sar Losai and Parsha Shmini, or Parsha. Tazria. And the Chiyuv Milah was mitzvah, and Yitzias Mitzrayim was mitzvah, the tzivui of Avraham Avinu, and therefore it could be by night. But that's not understood. Mitzvah Pnimis Einyan. And the explanation is, like we said, Laila Kayom Yar. So this was all a parenthesis to what the Rebbe started off the Sicha, and then the Rebbe finishes off and says, and that's why it was not a chidush when it came to Kriyas Shema Shel Shachris, because it was the middle of the night. So 6 hours before was already Kayom Yar. Because they were living in a state, this explains the Fili Kedabas Pshat, and it connects the two. In other words, they had no idea that the morning rose because they were takeh the whole night in a place of Laila Kayom Yair. Now, how does this fit halacha? L'chura, they had to stop saying Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kol Krishma. So how could it be that without the Talmidim they wouldn't have said it? And the answer is that Al Pidin they didn't have to say Krishma because Misha Teresa Yom Nasi, according to Bavli, is Pater mit Tefillah Chayv Krishma, but Ladasa Yerushalmi Pater mit Krishma. So because by Rabbi Lezer, etc., Teresa Yom Nasam, so therefore they were Pater from Krishma Ladas HaYerushalmi. And then Rebbe continued and continued and continued in the Farbrengen of that year, again, the second night of Pesach, Tafshin Chavhei. You should look into it. It's quite an interesting, extensive explanation in regarding that story.